Hi guys, this is Sohan Shetty. Today's topic is handler thread versus thread. So we will see what is the difference between the handler thread versus normal Java thread, and when to go for a handler thread and when to go for a normal thread. So handler thread is nothing but it's like a basically Android concept, whereas a thread is a purely a Java concept. Okay, so before we get into the coding part, first I will tell you what I'll be doing. I'll be creating a thread and I'll be doing some background operation for 10 seconds. Okay, and we will see what are the common problems are there in a normal thread. So let's get back into the coding. So as like I said, I'm gonna create a thread to do a background operation for 10 seconds. Okay, so we'll create a thread now. Okay, so creation of thread, you can create a thread in two ways. Either you can extend a thread or you can implement a runnable. So I'll go for a second approach by implementing a runnable, right? So we'll create a class, name will name it as worker thread, and we will implement runnable. We will provide the run method. So inside the run method, I'm gonna print a log, okay, for the duration of 1 second. So for that, what I'm gonna do, I will be creating a for loop. So this log will print 10 times each for the duration of 1 second. Log dot this is simply I'm just mocking the background operation. Okay, after printing, I'm gonna make the thread to sleep for 1 second. So 1000 millisecond is equal to 1 second. So it is asking to surround with a try and catch. Yes. So that's it. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a worker thread and by implementing a runnable interface. So inside the run method, I'm doing operation, like I'm just printing the statement from 0 to 9 for a duration of 1 second each. Now we have to start a thread. How will you start a thread? By creating a thread class. Thread. Since we have implemented a runnable interface, we have to pass a runnable instance to the thread constructor. We'll be passing the runnable instance here, and thread.start. So this will start a thread and it will make sure to run this run method inside. So inside we are printing a log from 0 to 9. So now let's run the application and we'll see. I run the application. Hello world. Now you can see the log here. Count 2, count 3, 4, 5. So we are seeing the unnecessary logs here. So what I'm going to do, I'll be doing like I'll put a unique tag name in. So inside this, I'll put a class name so that we can see our log only. So we'll rerun the application once again. It ran and now we should see our log. There you go. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So our thread is running in the background. Now, what if you want to do this operation multiple times? How will you do in a normal thread? What is your approach? So one approach, there are two approach. Okay, so one approach is like creating a thread instance multiple times, as many as time if you want to do these operations. Okay, so like creating a new thread multiple times. So but that is not a good idea actually, because creation of a new thread is actually consume a lot of memory, and it will make your applications lags in performance. So we should always try to avoid creation of a new thread as much as possible. So that is one approach, creating a new thread if you want to go. Another approach is there is a concept called thread pool in Java, where we can define a number of a thread, fixed thread, inside a thread pool. So from that fixed thread, it will try to reuse the thread. But again, that is a Java concept. Since we are dealing in Android, we will see whether is there any other unique approach in thread. I'm just thinking, what if we try to call this thread.start multiple times? What will happen? Let's check. Without creating a new thread, what if we try to call the thread.start multiple times? Let's run the application and we'll see. Boom, it got crashed. We'll see the log why it got crashed. It's saying that illegal thread state exception, thread already started. So in thread we can't reuse it. We can't call this thread.start multiple times. Why? Because it's saying that thread may not be restarted once it has been completed execution if a thread was already started. So that means in thread we cannot reuse this. Why? Once a thread exits this run method, it will change its states from runnable state to terminate state. So it has not got the default or inbuilt method to change its state to reuse it. So that's why we cannot reuse the thread instance. Either we have to create a new thread or you have to go for thread pool. But I'm thinking, what if, is there any approach in Android way? Can we do it in Handler? But wait, Handler, I think Handler it will run in a main thread, but I want to run in a background thread. How it is possible in Handler? Yes, Handler, we can do it in Handler by passing the threads looper to Handler. So through that way we can make sure that Handler is running in a background thread. So in Handler, whenever you create a new thread like this, if you're creating a new thread, it will take its main threads looper, because this creation you are doing inside the onCreate. So onCreate is obviously running in the main thread, so it will take the main thread looper. So that's why we cannot run Handler in a background operation. If you want to run a Handler in a background operation, then we have to pass the worker thread in the sense this one. So this thread looper we have to pass to the Handler. So let's see how to pass that worker thread looper to Handler. So before that, I will move this method to a separate function to avoid a confusion. Okay, so I will put it in a main activity and I will name it as do some work. So it has moved to a different method now I will delete this line since we can't reuse that thread instance. I will delete this line as well. I will be creating a handler instance as a member variable, and I have to pass that worker thread looper to handler. How to pass? Before that, I will command this method. We can get the worker thread looper through looper dot loop, and after that we have to create instance of a handler. So this line will make sure that handler is created inside a worker thread, and it will get its worker thread looper. Looper dot loop to reuse a handler. So see this line, since we are passing a looper, how we are passing? Simply by calling this looper dot loop, it will make sure that it will handle the worker thread looper. Okay, and we have to call this looper dot loop again. Looper dot prepare first, and then we have to go call looper dot loop. So here this line it will saying that looper is prepared and it's ready to loop here. So this 3 line will saying that handler is using the worker threads looper. Okay. Now how to call this handler now? By simply calling handler dot post, and inside and call the runnable instance, and inside the run method we can call that our background mocking operation. Okay, so as soon as see here there is one more problem here. As soon as you call the thread dot start, it will call this run method simultaneously before it goes to the next line. So which means that we have creating an instance in handler inside the run method, but before creating the instance it will call this line, this method. Obviously we will get a crash because we have not created handler instance yet. So what we can do this, we can create a while loop, and we can put a condition that handler is equal to null. So see, this condition is to check the handler has got the instance or not. It will keep running this loop until it gets this handler instance. Only then it will move to this line, so that we can make sure that handler has got has been created and it has got the worker thread looper. Okay, so that's it. So we will run this application and we will run this and we'll check. Application got installed, and see, yeah, it's printing count 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, right? So see, this handler is running in the background, right? Now we can use this handler instance multiple times. We can call this handler dot post as many as time we want, right? But whereas in normal thread we can't call this thread dot start multiple times. It will throw illegal thread start exceptions. So that's why we are going for handler approach. But wait, our today's topic is handler thread versus thread, right? Till now we haven't seen the handler thread. So where it is exactly used? See, to use the handler thread, first I will tell you the a common problem in using in handler now. To make the handler as a background thread, what you have to do, you have to create a thread class, we have to thread class, and you have to implement this runnable interface, and from runnable interface you have to get its looper, and we have to pass the looper to handler, right? So these many lines we have to need to make the handler to run in a background operation. So what if Android framework has got for us? What if Android has got a default class to avoid this number of lines? Of course. So that is what we call as a handler thread. So handler thread is nothing but is a handy class for you, where it is responsible to create a worker thread and its looper for your handler. Whereas normal handler, you are responsible to create a worker thread like this, and you are responsible to pass the looper to your handler, right? So that is one big advantage in handler thread. So now let's see how to use a handler thread. So before creating a handler thread, first I will comment all these lines simply to avoid the confusions, and also I will comment these also. We no longer require this class now. Okay, so I'll be creating a handler thread now. Handler thread. Since it's a default inbuilt class for you, it's a ready-made class for you. You can give a thread name if you want. Give a handler thread name itself. Okay, but still here we have to call that start method. That's it. And now you can initialize your handler, and you can pass your handler thread looper to handler now. Handler, and you can get the handler thread looper by calling handler thread dot get looper. There you go. So that's it. This line, it's stating that it is getting the handler threads looper, and it will make sure that to run in the background thread, right? Now you can call handler dot post as usual. So that's it. See guys, see only just few number of lines if you are going for handler thread, whereas if you are going for a normal handler, we have to create this many of number of lines as well as this class as well. So that is the usage of handler thread. It is a handy class for you to avoid a creation of a worker thread. Okay, now let's run the code and we'll see the output. It should print 0 to 9. There you go. See, you can see the output. Count 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 and 9. It's running in the background. Isn't it nice? So that is a good usage of using a handler thread. So now you guys, you know the difference between a normal thread versus a handler thread, and why we are going for a handler thread, because in normal thread we cannot reuse the thread instance. So so we have to go for a handler to reuse it, to reuse the thread. But still in handler we are responsible to create a worker thread. But whereas in handler thread will create a worker thread automatically for you, and you just have to pass the handler thread looper to handler. So that is the one advantage of using a handler thread. I hope you guys understood, and that's it guys. And if you have really have any doubt, please drop me the comments, and please do subscribe the channel, so that it will encourage me to put a new videos in the near future. That's it guys. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.